Ethan Parker had never been particularly interested in the past. History, old furniture, faded photographs, all of it seemed lifeless to him. That is, until the day he climbed into his grandfather's attic on a rainy afternoon. The air smelled of dust and cedarwood, and shafts of light filtered through the small window, catching motes that danced like tiny stars. Amid the clutter, something unusual caught his eye. A leather-bound journal, thick and worn, its edges frayed from years of handling. Tucked beneath it was a folded, yellowed map with cryptic markings. On it was a single, intriguing label: the Forgotten City. Ethan's fingers trembled as he traced the lines. His grandfather had always been a man of quiet mystery stories of his exploits in distant lands were whispered at family gatherings but never believed. Could this map be proof that those stories were true? Determined, Ethan packed a small bag with essentials, torch, notebook, water, and decided that the coming days would not be spent in hesitation. The adventure that had been whispering in the corners of his mind all his life was finally calling. Ethan boarded the night train to the foothills of the mountains, the map clutched in his hands. The carriage was dimly lit, mostly empty except for a man sitting near the end, hunched over a worn briefcase. His eyes flicked toward Ethan, sharp and assessing. "You're heading to the city," the man said abruptly, his voice low and steady. Ethan stiffened. Yes. How did you know?" "The map gives it away," the stranger said with a slight smirk. "Few know of it. Fewer still dare to find it. Be warned. Curiosity can be dangerous." Before Ethan could ask more, the man stood and disappeared into the shadows of the train. A shiver ran down Ethan's spine. For the first time, the journey felt truly real and threatening. He spent the night staring at the map, memorizing the strange symbols that seemed to move in the flickering lamplight, their meaning just beyond understanding. By sunrise, Ethan reached the small mountain village marked on the map. Narrow stone paths wound between crooked houses, with roofs darkened by centuries of rain. Locals eyed him warily, muttering in a language he could barely recognize. Following the map, he ascended a trail that led into the dense forest. Birds scattered at his approach, and the wind carried a chill that seemed almost deliberate, as if warning him to turn back. Eventually, he found the entrance to a cave, half hidden behind ivy and mist. Inside, the walls were etched with symbols and figures, strange creatures intertwined with human forms. The carvings seemed almost alive, shifting subtly when he wasn't looking directly at them. His torch flickered, casting shadows that danced across the stone, whispering secrets he couldn't yet understand. Ethan pressed forward, unaware of the eyes that watched him from the darkness beyond. As he ventured deeper, Ethan heard the faint sound of footsteps echoing in the cavern. "Who's there?" he called, torch trembling in his hand. A figure emerged, cloaked in darkness. The man, or perhaps something older, moved with a grace that was unnatural, almost ghostly. "You seek the city," the figure said, voice reverberating off the stone. "Few come with pure intent. What makes you different?" I just want to know the truth," Ethan said, gripping the map. "I want to understand my grandfather's journey." The figure studied him, then nodded slowly. "Follow, but do not trust your eyes alone. The city reveals itself only to those who can see beyond shadows." The figure led Ethan deeper into the cave, through twisting tunnels that seemed to rearrange themselves with every step. The walls were slick with moisture, and strange fungi glowed faintly, illuminating grotesque carvings. "This labyrinth is alive," the figure murmured. "It tests those who dare enter. Every wrong turn can trap you forever." Ethan's heart pounded as they turned corners, descended staircases carved from rock, and crossed narrow bridges over bottomless chasms. Strange whispers echoed around him, sometimes in a language he almost understood, sometimes in a voice that sounded eerily like his grandfather. At a fork in the path, the figure stopped. "Choose wisely. One path leads to the city, the other to oblivion." Ethan closed his eyes, thinking of the stories his grandfather had told him, letting instinct guide his hand. He chose the left path, and the walls ahead slowly opened into a vast cavern, revealing a city shrouded in mist, suspended between shadow and light. Ethan stepped into the city, a place frozen in time yet strangely alive. Towering buildings of obsidian and gold reflected a ghostly glow. Streets twisted in impossible angles, and fountains flowed with water that shimmered like liquid silver. Statues of forgotten rulers lined the avenues, their eyes seeming to follow him. Despite its beauty, a sense of unease pressed on Ethan's chest. He felt he was being watched. Shadows moved at the edge of his vision, forming shapes that disappeared when confronted. Whispers filled the air, snippets of conversations from centuries past. Every sound felt like a warning, every flicker of light a signal. The figure vanished suddenly, leaving Ethan alone. He realized the city itself was a test. To uncover its secrets, he would have to confront the shadows and the truths hidden in his grandfather's journal. At the city's center stood a colossal structure, a hall with doors carved from black stone. Symbols from the journal glimmered faintly on its surface. Inside, the air was thick with dust and time. Scrolls, artifacts, and tomes filled the hall. But one object drew Ethan's attention. A chest bound in iron and inscribed with a single word in glowing letters. Legacy. Ethan knelt, hands trembling, and opened the chest. Inside lay items his grandfather had described in stories. A compass that pointed not north but toward truth, a dagger with a handle of sapphire, and a ring etched with the city's symbol. As he touched them, visions filled his mind, glimpses of his grandfather's journey, of battles fought, of choices that shaped the city's fate. The hall seemed to pulse, responding to his presence. Shadows gathered, forming figures from the visions. Ethan realized that the city's trials were not physical, they were tests of courage, resolve, and understanding. Ethan was not alone for long. The stranger from the train appeared suddenly, stepping from the shadows with a sinister smile. "So, you've made it this far," he said. "But the city does not tolerate intruders." Before Ethan could react, the man lunged, dagger drawn. Ethan dodged, the fight spilling into the hall's twisting corridors. Ancient mechanisms responded to their struggle, walls shifting and floors giving way. The city seemed alive, testing both men simultaneously. In a desperate moment, Ethan remembered the ring from the chest. Placing it on his finger, he felt a surge of insight. He anticipated the stranger's move, turning the tables. The man stumbled into a pit that had suddenly opened beneath him, disappearing into darkness. Ethan stood panting, heart racing, realizing the city had judged him worthy. Ethan climbed to the highest tower of the city, where the map had indicated the final secret. From the tower, the entire city stretched before him, labyrinthine streets, shadowy figures, and glowing symbols. The air was alive with whispers of the past. He opened his grandfather's journal once more, comparing symbols and notes. A final realization struck him. The city was not merely a place, it was a reflection of the human spirit, a test of morality, courage, and curiosity. His grandfather had passed the test, leaving clues for Ethan to do the same. At that moment, a voice echoed in his mind, familiar and warm. "The city rewards those who seek knowledge, but it also tests their heart. Protect it, learn from it, and never forget." Ethan understood that the true treasure was not gold or artifacts. It was wisdom, courage, and the legacy of those who came before. Ethan retraced his steps, leaving the city behind. The labyrinth seemed less menacing now, almost welcoming. When he emerged from the cave, the sun was rising over the mountains, painting the world in gold and crimson. The village below looked ordinary, as if the forgotten city had never existed. Yet Ethan carried its secrets, the journal, the compass, and the ring, a tangible connection to the adventure and to his grandfather. He knew the world outside had not changed, but he had. Ethan returned home, the journal and artifacts hidden safely in the attic. Sometimes, late at night, he would hear whispers of the city, calling him back. But for now, he was ready to live with the knowledge he had gained, and perhaps one day, pass it on to someone brave enough to follow.